Sometimes the scariest stories don't start with blood, or screams, or even a trace of violence. Sometimes they begin with a note. Back in 2 minutes. That's all it said, scribbled in handwriting, taped to a shop window on a sunny afternoon in a quiet Welsh town. And then, silence. No struggle, no witnesses, no return. Her name was Trevaline Evans, a 52-year-old antiques dealer, beloved in her community. No enemies, no warning signs, just a normal day in a normal town that ended in one of the most baffling disappearances the UK has ever seen. Over 30 years later, her case remains a mystery. Was it a crime of opportunity, a carefully planned escape, or something much darker hiding in plain sight? This is the story of a woman who vanished in the middle of the day, and the trail of dead ends, strange sightings, and eerie coincidences she left behind. Just an ordinary life. You know, before a mystery becomes a mystery, it's just someone's life. Quiet, normal, and overlooked. That's exactly what makes this one so haunting. Trevaline Evans was born Trevaline Davies on September 6, 1937, in the small Welsh town of Llangollen, a picturesque little place, the kind that clings to routine and remembers every face that passes through. Nestled in the hills of Denbighshire, it's the sort of town that you would expect to see on a postcard, not in a police file. She lived in Llangollen her entire life, married her husband, Richard Evans, in 1958. They had one child together, a son, also named Richard, who would later become a police sergeant. Sadly, he passed away in 1999 from a sudden heart attack, just a few years after his mother vanished. He left behind a wife and 2 young sons. From all accounts, Trevaline lived what you would call a normal life, but it was a happy one. She was kind, quiet, deeply rooted in her community. She had a deep love for antiques, and in 1989, just 1 year before she disappeared, she finally fulfilled a dream by opening a small shop called Attic Antiques, tucked away on a church street, right near the River Dee. It was a simple, modest place, the kind of shop that you could easily walk past if you weren't looking, but locals knew it well. It sold everything from vintage furniture to old trinkets, and reflected her taste. In the week leading up to her disappearance, Trevaline had been away near Rhuddlan, helping her husband renovate their holiday bungalow. She returned to Llangollen on Wednesday, June 13th, just a few days before she vanished. There isn't much else that we know about her early life. In many ways, she was a private person, someone who kept things close. And maybe that's part of what makes this case so frustrating. Because even though she lived in the open, Trevaline Evans somehow disappeared without leaving so much as a footprint behind. Only a note. A disappearance. June 16th, 1990. A Saturday. Sunny skies over the small Welsh town of Llangollen. The kind of day where nothing bad should happen. But something did, and it began in a whisper. Trevaline Evans opened her antique shop, Attic Antiques, at 9:30 a.m. She drove her dark blue Ford Escort, parked it around 200 yards from her shop, and started the day just like any other. The town was busy, the shop even busier, with nearly 25 people stopping by that morning. Friends, regular customers, and they all said the same thing. She seemed relaxed, happy. She was looking forward to going out that evening. There was nothing off, no tension, and no nerves. Just a woman doing what she loved in a place that she knew well. And then, at around 12:40 p.m., Trevaline did something that she had done before on slower days. She stepped out, leaving a handwritten note on the shop door. Back in 2 minutes. It was her usual phrasing, routine. She didn't take her handbag, her keys, or even her jacket. The shop was left unlocked. Fruit and flowers that she had planned to take home were still sitting inside. She was spotted shortly after, around 1 p.m., buying an apple and a banana on High Street. Then she crossed Castle Street, and that was the last confirmed time that anyone saw her out in public. But here's where things get strange. A banana peel was later found in the trash bin inside the shop, so did she return? Or had she eaten it earlier and just threw it out before stepping out? Police couldn't be sure, but the idea that she came back, however briefly, made things even harder to explain. The last confirmed sighting of Trevaline was around 2:30 p.m., seen by someone who knew her walking down Market Street near her home. After that, nothing certain. There were 2 unconfirmed sightings later that day. One, 5 minutes after 2:30, of a woman resembling Trevaline walking out of town along the A5 by Riverside Park. And another at 3:45 p.m. of a similar-looking woman walking into Park Avenue from the direction of the River Dee. Whether either of those women were Trevaline has never been verified. Then there's this detail. Around 6 p.m., a woman driving by Attic Antiques thought she saw a man standing outside the shop. She couldn't be sure, but it looked like the door was open. But when Trevaline's family arrived later that night, it was locked, so who locked it? Inside the shop, nothing had changed. Her makeup compact was left open on the counter, her handbag with credit cards untouched, her car keys, her jacket, the fruit and flowers that she had planned to bring home. Everything was right where she had left it. But Trevaline was gone. Her husband, Richard, had just returned from their holiday home in Redland that afternoon. He reported her missing at around 11 p.m. after searching and getting no answers. From that moment forward, it was no longer just a quiet Saturday in Llangollen. It was the beginning of a mystery that's never been solved. The aftermath. After Trevaline vanished, Llangollen didn't feel like the same town anymore. What happened was one of the largest investigations North Wales had ever seen. Police took over 330 statements, conducted more than 1,500 interviews within a 12-mile radius, and eliminated nearly 700 cars from their inquiries. Every household in Llangollen was questioned. Posters with Trevaline's face were everywhere. Her husband, Richard, even offered a £5,000 reward. They searched the River Dee, the canal, the mine shafts, the caves, anywhere that she could have ended up. Nothing. Not a single clue. The case quickly caught national attention. It aired twice on Crime Watch, sparking calls and sightings from all over the UK, and far beyond. There were reports of her being seen in London, France, and even a remote town in Australia. Interpol got involved. Each lead was checked, and every single one fell apart. There was one detail people kept on circling back to: the well-dressed man. Multiple witnesses claimed to have seen Trevaline talking with a smartly dressed older man on June 14th and 15th, just before she disappeared. He wore a navy suit and carried a black briefcase. A sketch of the man was drawn up and circulated, but it didn't help. When the case was reopened years later, police no longer believed that the sketch was even accurate. Whoever he was never even identified. And that lead, like everything else, went cold. Despite the massive investigations, no money was ever withdrawn from her bank accounts. Her passport was untouched. Police started to believe that she hadn't walked away on her own. In 1992, they even followed a psychic's tip, searching the World's End woodland, a stretch of forest outside town, and later the canal bays with sniffer dogs based on another feeling from a letter writer. Desperate people grasp at desperate threats. But again, nothing. In 2001, they reopened the case. Forensics had advanced by then, and police hoped that something, anything, might finally break. They even arrested Trevaline's husband, Richard. He was questioned, but quickly released without charge. It was the only time anyone was ever arrested in connection with the case. Then came 2010, 20 years after she disappeared. The case was reviewed again, and a new angle surfaced. Robin Ligas, a convicted serial killer serving life for murdering 3 men in 1994, one of whom was an antiques dealer. Police considered a possible connection, but by January 2012, that theory was officially ruled out. And then, something strange. In 2019, 2 brothers, Andrew and Lee Sutton, contacted police with what they claimed was new evidence. They said that Trevaline's body was buried beneath Rutland Golf Club, the same town where her holiday home was located. They said that they had used special camera equipment and believed that they had found skeletal remains, including a skull and a hand, under the club's bar floor. They even claimed a forensic expert backed their findings. Police took it seriously, and on March 19th, they brought in X-ray equipment, cordoned off the area, and began a controlled excavation. An officer was even stationed there overnight, but in the end, they found nothing. Not a single bone. The Sutton brothers stood by their story. They filed a formal complaint alleging the body had been removed in the 5-day gap between their inspection and the official dig. They even said that they had received threatening phone calls and that someone had smashed a window in Andrew's home. The police, again, couldn't confirm any of it. And then came the plaque. In January 2021, a metal plaque appeared on a bench along the Perstaten Dursith walkway, just 4 miles from Evans' holiday bungalow. It read, "In memory of Trevaline Evans, vanished 16/6/1990, found Rudland GC 14/3/2019, removed 19/3/2019, RIP." The implication was chilling, that her body had been found and then removed. The plaque was removed by the county council after being defaced and surrounded by an all-night vigil. A second plaque appeared in May, this time at Pant y Fatwan, the ruins of an old miner's cottage. It read, "Justice awaits those responsible for the removal and disposal of Trevaline Evans, in this life or the next, from Rudland Golf Club on 19/3/2019 at noon, and may the Lord have mercy upon their souls." Same font, same ominous tone, but no one ever claimed responsibility. The Sutton brothers denied placing either plaque. By this point, Trevaline's family had mostly faded from public view. Her son passed away in 1999, her husband in 2015. Her younger brother, Leonard, hadn't spoken to the press in years, and without any immediate family pushing for answers, the case had slowly fallen back into silence. And yet, more than 3 decades later, Trevaline Evans remains officially missing. No suspect, no confession, no body. Theories and suspects. When someone vanishes into thin air, people want reasons, explanations, a pattern to follow. And when there's none, when the evidence just isn't there, what fills the silence is theory, speculation, and rumors. In the case of Trevaline Evans, there have been plenty of all three. With no solid leads and no movement on her bank accounts, authorities came to believe that she hadn't simply walked away from her life. And in 1997, 7 years after she had vanished, Trevaline Evans was legally declared dead. Murder was now the assumed outcome. The husband, Richard Evans. The first theory, and the one that had circled the longest, is the most obvious: her husband, Richard Evans. When the case was reopened in 2001, police turned their focus to him. Richard was questioned and even arrested, but ultimately released without charge. On paper, Trevaline and Richard were described as happily married, but behind the scenes, there were rumors. People talked about an affair, one that Trevaline may have been having. There was talk of a man who had left her over £10,000 in his will, and how that money had strained the marriage. A woman named Linda, an ex-girlfriend of Trevaline's brother, claimed that Trevaline had confided in her just 2 days before she disappeared. According to her, the marriage wasn't as peaceful as it seemed. Then there's the timeline. Official reports initially stated that Richard had been working in Rudland on June 16th and didn't return to Llangollen until that night. But another account places him in a pub in Llangollen at around 2:30 p.m., the exact time of Trevaline's last confirmed sighting. If that's true, then Richard was back in town earlier than he said, and didn't report her missing until around 11 p.m. Why the delay? But here's the thing. Police never found any forensic evidence to implicate him. No witnesses, no suspicious purchases, nothing to suggest premeditation. Richard never remarried and lived quietly until his death in 2015, outliving both his son and, presumably, his wife. If he was hiding something, he took it with him. Stranger abduction or misadventure. There's also the stranger danger theory, that she left her shop expecting to be gone for just a moment, back in 2 minutes, and crossed paths with the wrong person at the wrong time. A crime of opportunity, the kind that you can't prepare for and can't see coming. But Llangollen isn't a city. It's not anonymous, it's not chaotic. It was a bright, busy Saturday afternoon, and the town was packed with people. If someone attacked or coerced her, how did no one see anything? Still, the idea persists. Maybe she had gotten into someone's car, maybe she agreed to walk somewhere close. Maybe she knew them, or thought she did. Another variation is accidental death. Maybe she had a fall or a medical episode. Maybe she wandered off into the wooded areas, the canal or the caves that dot the region, and simply wasn't found. But even then, you would expect something. A body, a piece of clothing, something. Robin Ligas, the serial killer theory. So, as I mentioned before, in 2011, authorities explored a new possibility: that Robin Ligas, a convicted serial killer, may have been involved. Ligas murdered 3 men in 1994, and one of his victims was, of all things, an antiques dealer, killed just 30 miles from Llangollen. The connection seemed worth exploring, but Liga set a profile. His victims were all male, and he didn't go to any effort to hide the bodies. The idea that he would target a woman in broad daylight in a busy town and hide her so well that she was never found just didn't fit his known patterns. The theory was ruled out by police in 2012. Christopher Halliwell. In recent years, a new suspect has emerged in the disappearance of Trevaline Evans, one that wasn't on the radar back in 1990, but whose criminal profile eerily fits. Christopher Halliwell, a former taxi driver and window fitter, is now serving a life sentence for the murders of Sian O'Callaghan, 2011, and Becky Godden, 2003. Both victims were young women abducted in seemingly ordinary circumstances and later found in remote locations, their bodies buried with care. Police now believe that Halliwell may have been active for years earlier than previously proven. At the time of Trevaline's disappearance, Halliwell was working in North Wales, and one witness later placed him in Llangollen on June 16th of 1990, the very day that he vanished. He traveled frequently for work, including for roles in construction and window fitting, and had connections to nearby regions like Ormskirk and Liverpool. Llangollen, with its antique shops, riverside walks, and canal access, would not have been an unusual destination for him. What's unsettling is how well he fits into several threads of this case. Police were never able to identify a smartly dressed man in his 30s, even speaking with Trevaline in the days leading up to her disappearance. The man was described as stocky, carrying a briefcase, and engaging in intense conversations with her. A photo fit was later issued, but later dismissed as inaccurate. Independent investigators have compared it to images of Halliwell from the 1990s, and the similarities are hard to ignore. Even more compelling are the behavioral parallels. Halliwell was known for his ability to persuade women rather than overpower them. His victims often went with him willingly, with no initial sign of struggle. In Trevaline's case, there were no signs of forced abduction, no calls for help, no scuffle in the street. Just a note in the window saying that she would be back in 2 minutes. Her shop was untouched, her belongings still inside. This type of low-impact disappearance, where the victim seems to simply walk off, matches what Halliwell has done before. He also had a demonstrated connection to antique theft. In the early 1980s, Halliwell served time for burglarizing homes and stealing antiques. Trevaline's shop, open to buyers and sellers of vintage goods, could easily have drawn his attention. She was known to buy from travelers, strangers, and anyone with something to offer. It's not hard to imagine that Halliwell stepped inside either to sell, scout, or stage a future crime. He also had the means to make someone vanish. Halliwell once buried a victim so successfully that her body wasn't found for nearly a decade. He had experience as a gravedigger, groundsman, and builder, and he knew how to hide things, and Trevaline's body has never been found. Yet, despite the overlap, North Wales police have never officially linked Halliwell to her case. When pressed, they simply stated that there was no known link between him and any crimes in the region. But that absence of connection doesn't necessarily mean innocence. It might just mean that they haven't looked hard enough. One retired officer who investigated Halliwell had stated plainly that he believes that there are other victims out there, that Halliwell didn't start killing in his 40s, that he was already active long before he was caught. And if that's true, then Trevaline Evans would fit perfectly into the timeline. But there is no smoking gun here, no fingerprints, no confession, just a man with the means, the method, and most disturbingly, the opportunity. This is one of those stories where the digger you deep, the less certain anything becomes. There are so many angles to Trevaline Evans' disappearance, so many witnesses, sightings, suspects, false leads, and yet, for all of it, we're no closer to understanding what had really happened to her. The story feels complete in structure but hollow in answers, like a puzzle where the last piece just never existed in the first place. For me, the most unsettling detail isn't the timelines or gaps, or the unknown man in the blazer, it's the plaques. 2 metal plaques anonymously placed years later, suggesting that her body was found beneath a golf club bar and then removed. That's not the kind of thing someone writes lightly. It's not graffiti, it's deliberate, personal, and creepy in a way that words alone cannot fully explain. If the Sutton brothers are telling the truth, and I'm not saying they are or aren't, it just means that her body may have been discovered and then hidden again, erased. And if that's true, then someone knows exactly what happened. Someone has always known. But what kind of person does that? What kind of person plants a plaque in the middle of the night with an exact date and time, and then vanishes just like she did? Some point the finger at Christopher Halliwell, and yes, the overlap is chilling. The resemblance, the behavior, the access, he fits. But he was already in prison by the time those plaques were placed, which only raises more questions. If not him, then who? I wish I had a solid theory to give you, a satisfying bow to wrap this up, but I don't. Not really. Trevaline Evans stepped outside for 2 minutes. She left her fruit and flowers behind, and she never came back. 34 years later, we're still staring at the note on the door, wondering where she went. And that's where we're left for the story of Trevaline Evans. A woman steps out of her shop with a note that says back in 2 minutes and is never seen again. No struggle, no body, and no answers. Just decades of silence and speculation. I usually offer a theory, but in this case, I honestly don't know. The plaques, the sightings, the suspects, they only make things murkier. If someone does know the truth, they've stayed very quiet for a very long time. What do you think happened? Let me know in the comments, and if you're drawn to stories like this, unsolved and unsettling, and quietly terrifying, consider liking, subscribing, and sharing. It would mean a lot to me. Until next time, stay curious.